Fort Indiantown Gap National Guard Training Center is one of the busiest installations in the United States. Its purpose and goals are to prepare our troops for the military mission. Everything else is secondary. As you participate in outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap, please respect the mission, our troops, and the land on which they train. The following information includes important safety rules and regulations pertaining to outdoor recreation activities at our installation. Please review the presentation carefully, as you will be tested on the information at the end. Fort Indiantown Gap consists of over 17,000 acres. The installation is divided into two regions: Cantonment, which lies south of Blue Mountain, and the Corridor, which lies north of it. Cantonment holds over 4,000 acres for outdoor recreation. It consists of the Alpha Training Areas and Training Area Charlie 1. Cantonment also serves as the Deer Management Assistance Program, or DMAP, Unit 643. The training corridor lies between Blue Mountain and Second Mountain and holds over 11,000 acres for outdoor recreation. The corridor also serves as DMAP Unit 2840. DMAP will be discussed later in the brief. The majority of military training occurs in the training corridor, and this area also contains the impact area, which is off limits. Outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap is a privilege, and all activities are at the discretion of the garrison commander. The garrison commander may suspend any and all activities based on training requirements, available personnel, staffing resources, and/or installation security. Regulation guidelines are required by the Department of Defense and the Department of Army for any outdoor recreation program. All participants must comply with all Pennsylvania Game Code laws and regulations, along with Fort Indiantown Gap Regulation 215-2. Regulation 215-2 outlines all rules and regulations at Fort Indiantown Gap regarding participation in outdoor recreation and hunting activities. Knowing and understanding the information in this handbook is mandatory. Regulation handbooks can be obtained from the iSportsman webpage under the Rules and Regulations tab. All collected permit fees go towards sustaining and improving the outdoor recreation program and participant experience. These fees also support habitat creation and maintenance for all wildlife species on site. The general access permit for adults is $50. It is free for youth. The general access permit is required to access Fort Indiantown Gap for any recreational purpose. If you would like to hunt with a rifle during the 2 weeks of regular deer firearms season, you will also need to purchase the Firearms Deer Season Access Permit. The Firearms Deer Season Access Permit is $20 for both adults and youth. Fort Indiantown Gap follows all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission seasons and bag limits. However, the garrison commander may limit or suspend seasons at any time. All of Fort Indiantown Gap resides in Wildlife Management Unit 4C. The training areas are split between Union and East Hanover townships. Outdoor recreation generally opens the first Tuesday after Labor Day and closes at the end of small game season in February. We are also open from late April to the end of May for the spring turkey season. The end of spring turkey season marks the end of the outdoor recreation year at Fort Indiantown Gap. Quail hunting is not permitted at Fort Indiantown Gap. Amphibian and reptile hunting or collecting is strictly prohibited. Hunting and scouting are not permitted on Fort Indiantown Gap on Sundays for any reason, with the exception of the 3 days of expanded Sunday hunting, which in 2021 is the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th of November. Outdoor recreation is closed during the annual Wounded Warrior Hunt and the annual March for the Fallen. Fishing without a Fort Indiantown Gap access permit is authorized along Indiantown Run from the bridge at St. Joseph Springs, south along Route 443 into Marquette Lake, as well as south of Marquette Lake into Memorial Lake. Fishing is also permitted at Shoey Lake. A Fort Indiantown Gap access permit is required to fish in training areas available to outdoor recreation. All persons interested in trapping during fur-taking seasons must be registered for outdoor recreation in the iSportsman system and must reference the trapping availability sheet on the iSportsman announcements page. Trappers must check in and out of every training area in which they are setting and checking traps. All returning participants must review and update their personal information annually. It is a violation to use vehicles on the installation that have not been added to your iSportsman account. All contact information and vehicle information must be up to date and valid. Failure to comply with this is considered a serious violation and will result in permit revocation. There are approximately 80 tag deer on the installation, some of which have radio collars attached. These tag deer will aid in providing movement and population data to the wildlife program. These deer should be harvested as though they are any other deer. This study requires a non-biased approach in order to give accurate data. Selecting for or against these deer because they are tagged would alter the results of the study. Please indicate the tag number of any tagged deer in the comments section of the harvest record and return one of the ear tags to the wildlife office at your earliest convenience. The harvest of a collar deer will require the additional step of contacting the wildlife office immediately upon recovery of an animal. Failure to do so will result in immediate revocation of hunting privileges. The firearms deer season access permit must be purchased in order to hunt in the corridor during the 14 days of the regular firearm deer season. Hunter capacities in training areas open to firearms hunting will be restricted during the 14 days of firearms season. A lottery system may be used to allocate the number of hunters. Cantonment areas are not part of the firearms season access permit. Mentored youth and adults are permitted in accordance with PA Game Code. Registered guardians must register their mentee with iSportsman and fill out a hold harmless agreement for their mentee and submit that to the wildlife office. Mentors are responsible for their mentee and must make them aware of any safety concerns. Mentees must remain with their mentors at all times. If you have a disability and would like a Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit, please see wildlife staff. Hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the Pennsylvania Game Commission in order to receive a Fort Indiantown Gap permit. Non-hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. A Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit allows participants to travel and/or hunt on any accessible permanent trailer road within a training area that is open that day and that the participant is properly signed into. The check-in, check-out process is part of a digital system called iSportsman. You use this system to register. The Harvest check-in facility, located across from Range Operations, Building 11-9, along Service Road, contains 2 kiosk check-in stations. You can use these kiosks to check in and out for outdoor activities each day. The process consists of logging in with your permit number and PIN number, selecting from the available activities and open training areas, and then logging out for the next person. When checking out for the day, please repeat the procedure and confirm whether or not a harvest was made. Continued use of remote check-ins has been approved. Unless on public roads, outdoor recreation users may not enter a training area or travel Fort Indiantown Gap roads or trails without being checked in. Participants must remain checked into a training area until they enter another training area or until they leave the installation. Failure to check out remotely will be handled no differently than failure to check out at the kiosk. Points will be levied and suspensions given if hunters fail to check out properly. Any harvested game determined as not checked in will result in revocation of hunting privileges. Starting this year, a dashboard permit will be available to print upon purchase of your hunting permit. This permit must be printed and displayed on the dash of the vehicle whenever recreating on the installation. There must be a dash permit displayed for each individual in the vehicle. This permit must be displayed in a way that it can be easily read from the outside of the vehicle. Please follow all parking rules and regulations. Many locations have designated parking lots that must be used when accessing nearby training areas. In the training corridor, parking is permitted in the designated lots along Trail 10 and paved roads such as Ammo Road, McLean Road, Weiss Road, Cold Springs Road, and Tomstown Road when they are accessible and open. Driving on and parking along other trails and roads not listed in Fort Indiantown Gap Regulation 215-2 is prohibited. Parking at Memorial Lake State Park is also prohibited. This map is an example of a map of the training corridor used for outdoor recreation. Maps are available at the Outdoor Recreation Check-in Facility and on the iSportsman webpage under the Rules and Regulations tab. It is the responsibility of the participant to obtain, learn, and understand the outdoor recreation map. Areas in red are strictly off limits and cannot be accessed or entered. Blue areas are only open to archery-type weapons for hunting. Firearms in these areas are strictly prohibited. Purple areas are special regulation areas. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for information on area designations and their meaning. Areas open to outdoor recreation and hunting will change daily. Only what is listed as available in the iSportsman system can be accessed on any given day. Do not enter closed or restricted areas. If access to a closed area is needed, please contact Range Operations and the Wildlife Office to gain permission before entering. Under Pennsylvania Game Code, it is unlawful for a hunter to refuse or neglect to make a reasonable effort to retrieve any game or wildlife that may have been killed or wounded. It is the hunter's sole responsibility to be capable of participating in outdoor recreation activities and to retrieve any game. Do not expect the wildlife staff or range operations to be available to aid in the recovery of game unless the game has entered a closed or restricted area. If wounded game enters a closed or restricted area, it is the hunter's responsibility to contact wildlife staff and/or range operations immediately. Only range operations can grant access to retrieve wounded game in closed or restricted areas. Please know that if game enters a restricted access area, it may not be retrievable. If wounded game enters private property, please contact the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Hunters are allowed to use designated trails that are otherwise restricted when retrieving big game as necessary. Any and all harvests, including trapped animals, must be reported in the iSportsman system. Hunters are responsible for reporting their harvest that day and must provide the information and measurements requested. During the 14 days of regular deer firearm season, the deer harvest station will be open at the check-in facility. Anytime the deer harvest station is open, hunters must bring their harvested deer to be weighed and measured. Any failure to report a harvest may result in revocation of your access permit. When you harvest a deer, there are 3 specific measurements that are requested on the yellow harvest card report. The first is nose length, which is the measure from the corner of the eye to the corner of the nostril. The second measurement is chest girth, which is a measure just behind the front legs, pulling the measuring tape tight against the chest. And the third measurement is antler base circumference, which is a measure of the base of each antler below the brow tine if it is present. The Deer Management Assistance Program, or DMAP, is the Pennsylvania Game Commission run program that allows private landowners with overpopulated deer herds to harvest additional antlerless deer. Hunters may receive 2 DMAP coupons per DMAP unit. 2 additional coupons can be acquired for each DMAP unit after the initial redeem tags have been filled, for a total of 4 tags per unit. Coupons can be redeemed online or at any Pennsylvania hunting license vendor. If coupons are taken, they must be redeemed. Redeeming a coupon provides the hunter with an additional antlerless deer tag, only good for that DMAP unit. Failure to redeem a DMAP coupon will result in loss of DMAP privileges. Hunters must also report whether they used the tag to harvest an antlerless deer. It is preferred that female deer are harvested with antlerless tags. Button bucks will be next year's 4 or 6-point bucks. Fort Indiantown Gap's DMAP Unit 643 is comprised of all huntable areas and training areas south of Blue Mountain. This includes all of the Alpha training areas and Training Area Charlie 1. DMAP Unit 643 tags are only valid within this boundary. Fort Indiantown Gap's DMAP Unit 2840 has a new boundary this year. DMAP Unit 2840 is composed of all huntable areas and training areas found within the training corridor. DMAP Unit 2840 tags are only valid within this boundary. Safety violations are taken very seriously. Failure to follow rules and regulations as designated in Regulation Handbook 215-2 will result in points being assigned to the participant. 1 point will be given for minor violations, and 2 points will be given for major violations, which include many safety violations. Serious violations include but are not limited to, hunting in an unsafe manner, entering restricted areas, harassment of Fort Indiantown Gap personnel, and or the use of drugs or alcohol. Violation may result in revocation of access permit. Please read over and understand these examples of minor violations that may lead to 1 or 2 points being assigned. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. Please read over and understand these examples of serious violations that may result in revocation. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. There are many ways to stay up to date with current changes in information. Visit the announcements page for important, up-to-date information. If you want to know what areas are open for hunting, you can call the number provided and listen to a list of open areas. You can also use the navigation map found on the iSportsman homepage to view open areas for the current day and the next day. Finally, if you have any questions, please first visit the Frequently Asked Questions page, which covers many commonly asked questions. Remember that knowing how to safely access Fort Indiantown Gap for outdoor recreation is the most important aspect of this program. If you are a returning hunter, please be sure to update your contact information each year. Phone numbers, addresses, and vehicles change. This information must be kept up to date. Learn the new map and what boundaries have changed from previous years. Know how to sign in and sign out properly. Deer must be checked in at the harvest station when it is open, and hunters must report any and all harvests in the iSportsman system. All tagged and or collared deer must be checked in. Please follow all DMAP regulations. Remember that all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission regulations apply at all times. Non-compliance will result in loss of privileges for all participants. Please note these important contacts. All access and safety and or emergency concerns must be reported to range operations. Emergency situations can also be reported to the Fort Indiantown Gap Police. For any outdoor recreation program or wildlife issues, please contact one of these wildlife personnel. The wildlife number is 717-861-2663, which is the best means of immediate communication during outdoor recreation seasons. Please use email for non-urgent issues or questions. The Fort Indiantown Gap Conservation Club meets in Building 13-4 along Clement Avenue the third Thursday of every month. The Wildlife Office is Building 26-151 located along Tomstown Road. Please check the box indicating that you have watched the entire video and acknowledge that you understand that you are responsible for knowing the rules and regulations of the installation and that you accept all liabilities associated with outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap.